So hello friends, let's discuss about the social movements. As you know that currently a social movement is going on in India, the protest by the Cockroach Janata Party and the other students. So let us look that what are the theoretical perspectives. कि यदि हम इसको theory से explain करना चाहें, then how can we explain the phenomena of social movement? ठीक है? Now the first thing is that what is social movement? We see that almost every month in any part of the world, different movements are going on. Currently in India, it is going on. In the past, we have seen that the movement, the Anna movement, it was India against corruption movement, which was there during the UPA government. Then in US, we saw the Black Lives Matter movement when George Floyd was killed. And the discrimination against the black people, it was the center of the debate, and the movement happened. Um, when we talk about another movements, there was Occupy Wall Street movement. It started from US and then is spread across the Western world. The focus of the movement was that how the present economic system, the neoliberal economic system, how it is creating concentration of wealth. Only 1% are benefiting, rest 99% are not benefiting. In fact, इस movement का जो slogan था वो ये था, we are 99%. So basically they talked about the capitalist way of development. Then we saw the Arab Spring movement which emerged, and the focus was that bring democracy, recognize rights, liberty, freedom in that part of the world. Recently, just before this conflict, we saw movement in Iran. That was when women, they were speaking against the patriarchal government of Iran, and how the society is not equally egalitarian for the women. So almost always we see that some social movement is going on in some part of the world or the other. Social movement hai kya? If you define it in very simple terms, social movement basically means that it is a collective behavior. A group of people come together with a purpose based on certain ideology. They have a methodology that they follow, and they also have a common organization through which they are associated. But लोग social movement करते क्यों है? पहला क्वेश्चन. Social movement तब होता है when the expectation of the people and the delivery of the system, there's a difference, and this difference is increasing. Rajni Kothari ने define किया कि social movement is a kind of collective behavior which emerges when there is an increasing difference between the expectation of the people and the delivery of the system. In that case, the social movements occur. And you'll find that it always occurs in a cycle. Some complain to the government, people will participate in the movement, government will listen to their demand, they will implement it, and maybe after 10 years, 15 years, फिर से नए demands आएंगे, फिर से movement होगा, again the same cycle would be followed. Now, if we have to explain the social movement, that how can we explain from different theoretical perspectives that why social movements happen? We can refer to the Marxist perspective, which says that social movements are the result of material deprivation. When people are materially deprived, then they have no other option other than to come out on the roads and protest against the state. Marxist का ये कहना है that state is an instrument of the capitalist class. The state will take care only of the interest of the richer section, and therefore the lower classes, they will come out and protest. In fact, Marx ने बात की that when class in itself will convert into class for itself, that means set of people who have lower consciousness, उन्हें नहीं पता कि how strong they are, then they will not be protesting. But the moment they will get the complete consciousness, full consciousness, they will be aware about their power, then they will become class for itself, and then they will go for revolution, or violent revolution. This is what Marx said. But liberals का ये कहना है कि it is not always the material deprivation which drives people into the movement. क्योंकि यदि material deprivation ही एक core, एक sole reason है, then why would people like Mahatma Gandhi, he was not materially deprived, he was a known barrister. Why would people like Nehru come into the movement, national movement? Nehru was not materially deprived. Why would people like even Shashi Tharoor will enter into any movement or politics? He is not materially deprived. So it's not that, or for that matter, why would Jayaprakash Narayan enter into the movement, Sampurna Kranti movement? He was not materially deprived. So the liberal perspective says that it is not just the material deprivation, rather it is the dissatisfaction with the present system and a promise of alternate system. कि जो अभी की व्यवस्था है उससे कुछ लोग खुश नहीं होते हैं एंड उनके दिमाग में होता है कि इससे अलग एक व्यवस्था बनाई जा सकती है जिसके चलते लोगों को मूवमेंट में पार्टिसिपेट करना पड़ता है. यदि हम बात करें संपूर्ण क्रांति मूवमेंट, जयप्रकाश नारायण लेड दैट मूवमेंट. उस समय की जो व्यवस्था थी जो इंदिरा गांधी चला रही थी, लोग उससे खुश नहीं थे और इसीलिए गुजरात से नवनिर्माण मूवमेंट, देन फ्रॉम बिहार द संपूर्ण क्रांति मूवमेंट स्टार्टेड एंड वी सॉ दैट इट स्प्रेड अक्रॉस इंडिया. And the idea was to establish a new system, which after 1977, the elections, the Janata Party government was formed. So liberals का ये कहना है कि it is the dissatisfaction, not just the material deprivation. But एक theory आई 70s में जिसको कहा जाता है resource mobilization theory. इसने liberal conception को थोड़ा करेक्ट किया. इनका आर्ग्यूमेंट ये था कि ऐसे बहुत सारे सेक्शंस होते हैं who are not satisfied with the system. They may have complained with the state, with the government. But इसका मतलब तो ये नहीं है कि सभी आ जाते हैं मूवमेंट में. Many people are materially deprived as well as they are not satisfied with the government. But इसका मतलब नहीं है कि सभी social movement कर पाते. For a successful social movement, you require resource mobilization. Maybe I'm not happy with the government, but जब तक मेरे पास resources नहीं रहेंगे, I will not be able to participate and start the movement. So resources are required. अब resources क्या हो सकते हैं? 5 kind of resources were mentioned. The most important is the material resource. You require logistics. यदि आपको प्रोटेस्ट करना है, आपको रामलीला मैदान जैसी जगह चाहिए, जंतर मंतर जैसा जगह चाहिए जहां पे आप बैठ के प्रोटेस्ट कर सकते हैं. You require people. So human resources. मूवमेंट, सोशल मूवमेंट्स आर कलेक्टिव बिहेवियर. एक इंसान से मूवमेंट नहीं होता है. यू रिक्वायर मोर एंड मोर पीपल टू गेट एसोसिएटेड विद द मूवमेंट. तो ह्यूमन रिसोर्स जरूरी है. व्हेन जेपी लेड द मूवमेंट, ऑलमोस्ट एंटायर इंडिया got connected with it. When Anna led the movement, then many people came to support. During this protest also, many students, they went there to support the movement. So you require human resource, you require socio-organizational resources, social connectivity is required. You require cultural resources and you require moral resources. अब moral resources का क्या मतलब है? You require a face value. Face value. Celebrity endorsement जिसको बोलते हैं. लोग मूवमेंट में तब तक नहीं आते हैं until unless a celebrity endorses it. जैसे हम बात करें संपूर्ण क्रांति मूवमेंट, जयप्रकाश नारायण gave this moral resource. If we talk about Anna movement, India against corruption movement, Anna Hazare was the face on which the people came. If we talk about the present movement, it is Sonam Wangchuk whose face is important, who is giving the moral legitimacy to this. If we talk about Narmada Bachao Andolan, it was Medha Patekar and in fact Amir Khan also supported that movement. So ये जो आप देखते हैं कि movements में celebrities आते हैं, they come and support, it is the moral resources. And this theory says that only when these 5 resources in different combination are present, then only the social movements occur. केवल material deprivation or केवल dissatisfaction with the system is not the sufficient condition. Then there was another theory which explains that why the movement occurs, and that is the relative deprivation theory. Relative deprivation. यहां आपको डिफरेंशिएट करना है. देयर इज अ वर्ड कॉल्ड एब्सोल्यूट डिप्राइवेशन. एब्सोल्यूट डिप्राइवेशन जैसे एब्सोल्यूट पॉवर्टी होती है. एब्सोल्यूट पॉवर्टी दैट मींस पीपल हु आर बिलो पॉवर्टी लाइन. एब्सोल्यूट डिप्राइवेशन, वहां पे एब्सोल्यूट डिप्राइवेशन is raising a question on survival, on the survival itself. ठीक है. Relative deprivation का मतलब होता है that you will see that some people similarly placed are getting better than what you are getting. तो वो relative deprivation वाली फीलिंग आती है कि हमें ये चीज क्यों नहीं मिल रही है. if other countries are getting, let us say, a good government, then आपको feeling आएगी कि why can't we have such accountable government. So relative deprivation is something which drives the social movement. अब ये relative deprivation establish कैसे होता है? For that, Walter Runciman gave 4 criteria. First, that the community which is protesting should not have that resource. अब इसको आप समझ सकते हैं through the demand for OBC reservation which happened in 1980s और 1990s की शुरुआत में तो मिल ही गया था रिजर्वेशन. So basically 1970s and 1980s, that OBC group, they were not having the reservation, so they were feeling relatively deprived. Second, others have the resources. Scheduled caste and scheduled tribe were having the reservation, but OBCs just a notch above, they were not having the reservation. Wants to have the resource, that means OBC wanted to have the reservation. And last is, there was a reasonable chance for the OBCs to get the reservation. Upper caste रिजर्वेशन का डिमांड नहीं कर सकते थे तब, लेटर ऑन ईडब्ल्यूएस के लिए रिजर्वेशन का डिमांड बाद में आया, बिकॉज एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम 70s में इफ अपर कास्ट वुड हैव डिमांडेड रिजर्वेशन, वो मिलता नहीं क्योंकि ये कंडीशन फेल होता, दे वुड नॉट हैव रीजनेबल चांस ऑफ गेटिंग दैट रिसोर्स, दैट रिजर्वेशन. So why OBC reservation could be a reality? Because it was fitting the case of relative deprivation. OBCs were feeling relatively deprived in comparison to scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, and these 4 conditions were matching. That is, they were not having the reservation, others were having the reservation, they wanted to have the reservation, and there was reasonable chance of the group getting the reservation. Why? Because the Mandal Commission in 1978 had already suggested a 27% reservation for them. And at the state level, particularly in Bihar and UP, the reservations were being given by the governments of Karpuri Thakur, Ram Naresh Yadav. And therefore, there was a reasonable chance that even at the union, the reservation can be given. So, this is what we call as relative deprivation theory, which explains that why certain group enter into social movement. Now, here also it is important to note that relative deprivation, if it is egoistic, यानी relative deprivation कोई एक particular individual feel कर रहा है, then it will not be social movement. यानी किसी particular office में किसी एक individual को promotion नहीं मिला, that will be egoistic relative deprivation, और उससे movement नहीं होगा. The movement happens only when the egoistic relative deprivation changes to fraternalistic relative deprivation. यानी पूरे community को, एक इंसान उसको promotion नहीं मिला, then he will find that another person from his community, he also did not get the promotion, then another person from his community did not get the promotion. So अब क्या होगा कि egoistic relative deprivation is turning into fraternalistic relative deprivation, and now it can become a social movement. So this is where we can explain कि यदि social movements होते हैं, then why the social movements happen. The Marxist, the liberal, the resource mobilization theory, and the relative deprivation theory. Social movements are considered as the essential feature of any democracy. Social movement is considered as the essential feature of any democracy. In fact, there's one instance that Ram Manohar Lohia, he was against the rising rates for the canal irrigation, जिसको कहा जाता है कि नहर रेट आंदोलन. उनसे पूछा गया कि आप आंदोलन क्यों कर रहे हैं, आप 5 साल का इंतजार कर सकते हैं, आप चुनाव लड़के, आपकी पार्टी चुनाव लड़के सरकार बना सकती है और उसके बाद जो भी आपको डिसीजन लेना होगा आप ले सकते हैं. So why are you not following that democratic institutional process, election wala? Why are you coming to protest against the government? He said, जिंदा कौमें 5 साल का इंतजार नहीं करते. That means if you are aware about your right, then the social movements are actually the part of democracy. Or if you see across the world, you will not see social movements happening in North Korea. आपको कोई example नहीं मिलेगा. You will not see social movements happening in China. You will not see social movements happening in Middle East. You will not see social movements happening in any of the military dictatorships. social movements happens only in liberal democracies. And if social movements are happening, it shows that democracy is working, because dissent is the primary pillar over which democracy stands. And this results into the political and social development. Certain demand, government fulfilling it, after some time, another set of demand arising, again government fulfilling it. This cycle always goes on. And this is what develops democracy. The best example is again OBC reservation. First demand was demand for reservation by OBC group. It was granted. And now we are saying now the demand is for subcategorization within OBCs so that the quotas can be subcategorized. And we have seen that in the upcoming census, now the caste census will happen. And as a result of that, we may see in the future that subcategorization of the OBC quota can be done. In fact, Supreme Court has already accepted in the Vinder Singh case that there can be subcategorization for the scheduled caste reservations. So this was the philosophical theoretical explanation of the social movements. Remember that the social movements are the central pillar of any democracy.